Hi class. So this week I'm going to demonstrate how to do charts in Excel. The first one's going to be a histogram, although we did that in order to get the frequency last week. I'm going to actually just do a histogram showing the chart and everything. After that, we're going to do a bar chart and then a pie chart and then a pivot table. So if you remember from last week, a histogram, you'd have to go to data and then data analysis. But remember, it's highly likely that you'll have to add data analysis every single time you use Excel. So to do that, we go to File, Options, Add-ins, and we want to make sure Analysis Toolpath is selected, and it's also highlighted down at the bottom. And so at the bottom it should say Excel add-ins, and you go ahead and hit go. Then you have to check Analysis Toolpath and hit OK. Now you should have data analysis showing up in the right corner of Excel. All right, so now that we have that, we can select data analysis. We can select histogram because that's what we're doing next, and hit OK. Once you get this little box, you can always move it around so it doesn't block the data you need. So the input range, if you remember, is basically everything that you want in your histogram. So here are some test scores that we're going to run a histogram on. And so we want everything. Let's also include the labels. So we want everything in here. And then the bin range. So remember the bin range, we have to create ranges or bins before we can run a histogram. And I didn't do those before the video, so we can't do that. We'll have to do the bins first. So we're going to cancel that. And we're going to create bins. All right, so let's see. We can do ranges so that we can just create a bin, or we can just kind of look at the data and kind of guess. Okay, so it looks like the smallest number is a 2. So we can say maybe 2 to 10. And then, so that means 10 would be the bin. Let's move that over here. All right, so when you put in 2 to 10, it gave me February 10th. So again, we have to change that. And to do that, we need to make sure this is numeric. So we need to go to Home. It should be, let's see if we, Custom. So we have to make sure that we select text. And then let's try that again. 2 to 10, and then that worked. So the next one would be 11 to, let's say, 20, 21 to 30, 31 to 40. What's the highest number here? 44. Looks like the highest number is a 44, so we would need to go, say, 41 to 50. All right, so then remember our bin is just the ending number. So it's 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. Those are our bins. So now we can do the histogram. So we're going to go to Data, Data Analysis, Histogram. Okay. Then remember our Input range is everything, all our scores. Our bin range is going to be our bins. Remember, include the headings. And then we're going to hit label. We're going to select the output range, which we got to make sure we select the box. If not, it's going to take out the actual input range. So select the output range box and select where you want it to go. Once you do that, next step is we want to make sure we tell it that we do want the chart. So if you see at the bottom, it says chart output, make sure you select that. You can also select cumulative percentage if you want that to be included. It's totally up to you as to what information you want. I'm just going to do the chart output and then hit OK. Okay, it says it contains, okay, I got an error saying it contains non-numeric data. That's because when I selected the scores, the top cells next to scores are empty. So I have to fix that. So let's go back to input range and select scores, but okay, so that would mean I can't include the label for scores because that's empty. So let's go back and take that out. We're going to select right here, right below the actual label for that one. And then since we did include the bin, the label for bin, we should keep that selected. Hit OK. And there you go. So here's your histogram. This is your actual chart. Okay. So the good thing about Excel is like it will tell you what's wrong. So if you select non-numerical data, it will tell you, hey, you're using non-numerical data. It's not going to work, right? And you can go back and fix that. So here's your histogram. Here are the bins that we used, right? And here are the frequency. So scores between 2 to 10, there's 4 scores between 2 to 10. Then there's 14 scores between 11 to 20. There's 19 scores between 21 to 30. There's 10 scores between 31 to 40. And then there's 3 scores between 41 to 50. Okay. And if you see, basically, the chart is just a visual view of your data. It's easy to just look at your chart and see what's going on rather than having to look through these numbers. All right, so now that we did the histogram, we are going to do a bar chart, okay? We're going to highlight the data that we want to include in the chart, which is this right here. We're going to click Insert. And then look for Charts, which is over here. And then we select the chart we want to use. And we want a bar chart, so it's this one. If we select that one, you can do a 3D, a 2D. You choose the one you want. I'm just going to do a regular 2D chart. Okay, and you select it, and there's your chart. So my chart is for gender. It's showing how many are males and how many are females. So if you can see just by looking at the chart, you can see that we have more males than females. So without having to read through a paragraph to find that information, looking at the chart just gives you that information at your fingertips. And you can always move these around to where you need them. So I'm just going to move that out the way. The next one is a pie chart. So the pie chart works kind of the same way that the bar chart does. So we have to highlight the data that we want included. we go to Insert. We go to the charts area, and you see the little pie chart right here. We select that. And again, you can select whether you want it to be 2D or 3D. Let's do a 3D this time. All right, so that's the 3D chart. All right, so basically it shows you at the bottom that the blue is for black, the white is this orange right here, Hispanic is the gray, Asian is the yellow, and then the other is blue, or this darker blue here. Okay. Here are just some tools that you can use to make any changes to your chart. Like for example, the little plus sign here says if you wanted to add or remove or change your chart elements, such as whether you wanted to change your title, if you wanted to change the data labels, you could make those changes. So if you wanted to say here gender, right, you can change that. So you can do that. So the thing is with the chart, these are also things that you can include in your descriptives. So you're welcome to use these in your final paper. Okay, so lastly, we're going to do a pivot table. So with the pivot table, kind of same thing as the charts. You select the whole table, all the data, and you do insert and pivot chart, select that. So then you select pivot chart and pivot table. If you can see, the table or range is already selected. But instead of selecting new worksheet, you want to come down here and do existing worksheet. Select the box that says location and just select the location you want it to go. So I'm going to put it right here. And then hit OK. So then you get these things. Another table pulls up for that. And so now we have to build a pivot table. So what we're going to do first is that we're going to take the gender. We're going to take gender and we're going to drag it down to the rows or the axis category down here. And then we're going to take category and drag it down to the we're going to drag it down to the columns label or the columns label box and add it there. All right, so we need those two. And then we also take the category and then we're going to bring it down here to the values. And it gives us this little chart. We can move this down here. So it gives us a chart and it gives us the table as well. Okay. All right, so there's the pivot table. So it kind of shows you, so we have two genders, 1 and 2, so either male or female, and remember you can code those so that you can know what the 1 is and what the 2 is. So the category, so they could either be on A category, B category, or C category. Again, this is just data. That category could be anything depending on what your data set is. Okay, so let's just say if we were trying to interpret this, we would need to know what the 1s and 2 meant, right? So we can just say 1, so 1 equals male and 2 equals female. Okay, so looking at the table, we can say that, um, so for males, 4 were in category A, 4 males were in category A, 5 males were in category B, and um, and for females, we had 4 females in category A, 3 in category B, and 4 in category C. Okay. Um, okay. So it's just a helpful way for you to be able to look at the data without having to read through something to find it. Also, I'm pretty sure with the category, or I'm pretty sure with the pivot table, you can do different things. You can sort them from largest to smallest or from smallest to largest. So basically, the pivot table is a summary of your data. It's helpful if you have a lot of information or a lot of data and you need to find averages or sums, or you need to sort them. It's very helpful. So you may or may not use this in the future, but if you do, now you know how to do it, right? Okay, so those are some of the most popular charts that you may want to use. If you're planning on using any of these in your final paper, you may be able to use well, you're definitely going to use the histogram because you have to use that to calculate the frequencies. So once calculating the frequencies, so you don't have to do a separate histogram, go ahead and select the chart output whenever you're calculating frequencies. That way you have the chart and you don't have to do a separate histogram for graphs. You may or may not include maybe a pie chart depending on, what your data is, what demographics that you have. You may or may not use like a pie chart, or you're definitely using a histogram, maybe a pie chart, or a bar chart. But I don't expect to see a pivot table in your paper, just because that's not what it's used for. But a pivot table you would use that more maybe working in the field and having data, a lot of data that you need to summarize, a lot of data that you need to be able to easily sort, or data that you just have, or just having a lot of data that you need to be able to manage quickly. All right, so that's all right. So that's it for charts. We don't have a homework assignment on charts. I just wanted you to see how to do it. That way you're able to, use this when writing up your descriptives, or being able to use this in the future when you have to make a presentation or something like that. You would know how to use this in Excel.